Hi, it's Laurie Morse here with Creating Your Health Naturally. And I had told you that I would put forth 3 simple steps to activate your cellular intelligence and begin creating your health or allowing the natural health, the blueprint of health that exists in all human beings to emerge from you. And so the first step is really identifying your beliefs about that very thing. Do you when I say to you that you have a natural birthright, you have a design or a blueprint that is health inside of you, do you believe that? Most people say yes, but I have to say that unless if we believe that 100%, then we're healthy. And so if we're not healthy, then there's aspects of us, whether conscious or unconscious, that actually doesn't trust that that is true. And our culture doesn't make it easy because our culture is all about taking medication, and there's all these problems that are constantly happening, high cholesterol and high blood pressure and diabetes. And we can look around in any given moment and see examples of not health. And so it causes our own trust of our own natural birthright or our own internal blueprint of health to feel a little shaky, which I can understand. So the first step is identifying those beliefs and then being very clear about why you want your health. One of the first steps in anything that we ever want is identifying why we want that. If we aren't really sure why, then there's not a whole lot of underlying foundation to move us forward, especially when things can get a little bit bumpy in the road, which I don't know anything that we want that's farther down the road from us that we have to move ourselves toward that doesn't have some bumps in the road. So that's just life. So that's the first part. And the second part is removing the things that do not support our health, our intention of health, and cleaning and purifying. When we state an intention for something, this is true on all subjects, but obviously we're talking about health. When we state an intention for something, everything that is not that will show itself for purification and for processing and for releasing and for healing. And so that's a natural phenomenon, not to be resisted, but to have a conscious relationship with getting better and better at allowing that to come up and appreciating it. At some point you'll get there to appreciate that it's presenting itself so that you can do what you need to do to release and process and heal it, so that there's more space provided for health, like pulling weeds in a garden. Once you pull little patches of weeds, then there's more space for that which you want to grow in the garden. Actually, I love that garden analogy because it's whether you like to garden or not, and I do, so obviously it's an analogy that I appreciate, but most people understand the idea of gardening. And if you decide you want to have a garden, there might be any number of reasons why. You might want to teach your children to garden. You might want to get your hands in the dirt a little bit more. You might want to save money by growing your own food. There's a number of reasons why, but there's a motivating reason why you want that. And then you set out in just deciding where you want to put your garden. And if anything that's in the way of the where, like if there's a big boulder, or if there's trash, or old things that you've been storing in your yard, you make an intention and you set time aside to get rid of that. And then you decide how you want the garden plot to be. Do you want to put borders around it? Do you want to raise it up a little bit so you don't have to bend down so far when you do your gardening tending? And all of those things you decide, and then you set forth in doing that, and then you figure out where you're going to get your soil if you don't already have it in your own yard. And then once you have the soil, you assess the quality of the soil and you go about enriching the soil so that it's a fertile soil in order to grow healthy plants. You might need to add nitrogen or phosphorus or blood meal or bone meal or worms, or all the things that will make it a biologically alive and vital soil in order to grow healthy plants. And then you decide what you want to grow. Not everything can grow at once, and not everything can grow in the same season. So you decide what you want to plant, and then you either buy the seeds or you buy starters and you plant them. And then even still your work is not done. You have to water and you have to fertilize a little bit farther down the road, and you have to pull the weeds. Weeds can't take up the space in your plot if you want food to grow in it, in your plot. So you make sure that the weeds don't take over, and then at some point it's obvious that it's time to harvest your food, your plants, your precious plants. There's nothing more wonderful than going out to your garden and cutting lettuce or pulling up a carrot or whatever it is that you want to have for the very next meal and preparing that for yourself. It's so incredible. And even if you don't have a yard, you can always put a couple of things in a pot or something like that. I mean, I really do think that growing something is very, very nourishing to the soul. So anyway, that's a good analogy. And so in the second video, we'll talk about that second part, about what needs to be removed. And then in the third video, and the third step, or the third part, is about creating wholeness, about accessing choices that will start cultivating health from the inside out, and will start prepping your inner terrain and creating a fertile soil for health to actually blossom from. And then after that, you just keep rinsing and repeating, because that's what will, over time, give your natural blueprint, your pattern of perfection of health that lives inside of you, the opportunity to come from inside of you, not from outside of you, but from inside, to come through you. It doesn't come to you. Health doesn't come to you. It comes through you. And yeah, so that's that. So let us go back to this first step that we are in this video, which is when I say to you that health is your natural birthright and that it lives in you, I would like for you to think about how much of that you believe. If you believed it 100%, you would have health. And if you don't have health, if there are either niggling symptoms or full-blown problems that you're really worried about, then there are parts of you that don't believe that health is true for you, that health is your natural true state. And that could have either come from our cultural influences, or from something that happened in your family, or just any number of things in terms of a belief that you have made up, that you have made true. Like, oh, it's natural that we have, our joints ache by the time we're 60, or, there's so many different beliefs. So I encourage you to get clear about what are some of the things that aren't true to the truth that health is a natural birthright. And health, it isn't something like a dream that we wish would come true. Health already is, and we need to become true to it. Becoming true to health is the same thing as cultivating soil that will allow for plants to grow. And that's very true for us as well. One of the things that I would encourage you to do is become very clear about why you want your health. It's very different for everybody, but I'll give you a couple of examples. Some people want their health because they want to be able to play with their children or their grandchildren without limitations. For example, I want my health because I am a very physical person. I love gardening. I love doing art. My work is physical. I love feeling good in my body, and I am so motivated to feel good every day when I wake up. And I don't want to spend time in doctor's offices or hospitals. To me, that is just, when there are so many other things that I would rather spend my time on, I'm very clear that I want to avoid spending my time on having to be ill. And there's nothing to me like the feeling of vitality and well-being in my body. So I strive for that. I shouldn't say I strive for it. That's my intention, that's my vision, and that's what I choose each day to support. inside of myself. So that's what actually ends up blossoming from me. And then I enjoy the fruits of my labor. I enjoy the harvest, so to speak. For other people, there's something that they know still that they have left to achieve in their life, whether it's a calling or just something, some kind of a purpose thing that they feel that they aren't quite there yet, but they almost know that they can't really get themselves there unless they have a state of vitality or a state of health for themselves. It is factual that most, or not most, but people who are healthy make 20% more than people who aren't healthy. And people who are healthy are, have a much different response from people out, people that they come in contact with than people who are unhealthy. So there's a lot of people decide that they, in order to feel connected in the outside world, that being healthy is one of the ways that they have access to doing that more. Because when you're unhealthy, we shut down, we kind of collapse, we get a little more protective and maybe even defensive, and it's hard to be a connective person when we don't feel well. It's hard to feel not well. So the point is that there's a lot of reasons why people want their health. And if I were in your shoes, I would get very clear about why you want to be healthy. What does that mean to you? What do you feel like that would give you in your life that you don't have right now? And write it down. There's something very magical in writing. And write all of that down, and then in our next video together, we will talk about what we need to do, what we need to remove or release so that you can have the very thing that you just identified that you wanted and why you want it. Until then, Laurie Morse signing off for Creating Your Health Naturally.